talking about the cost of COVID tests when you go on holiday, because in what's been labelled a national scandal, travel testing firms are being accused of charging extortionate prices for COVID PCR tests for holidaymakers.
Government guidelines suggest they should cost just £20 for a single test, but there are some reports of some firms charging up to £400, and actually I've heard even more. New analysis of global figures shows the UK is the second most expensive country for a PCR test at an average of £92 each. After America, the most expensive at £119.
But the cost to European nationals is much lower. For residents of Spain, it's £69. On average, Greece are charging £57. In France, they average at £42. And in Turkey, a test averages at just £21. That's the lowest of all countries.
So what on earth is going on? You just have a horrible feeling that someone is making money out of this unfairly. So is it time to cap the costs of PCR tests for travellers? We're now joined by travel consultant Paul Charles and Gabriela Brewer, who runs a COVID testing clinic, and former Health Secretary Edwina Currie, and Dr. Amir Khan, our very own Dr. Amir Khan, also joins us too. So, look, Gabriela Brewer, you run a COVID testing clinic. It sort of stinks a bit to this, I think, for most people. We have no choice but to get ourselves tested. Why are we paying such extraordinary amounts for a test, which on the face of it, we know, costs us a matter of a few pounds?
Indeed, we try to keep our prices as low and affordable as possible, but the margins are indeed very tight for us due to the expensive lab costs for processing these samples. Because you have to understand there's also a lab in the middle that actually processes all these samples.
Therefore, so why are our labs here in Britain then, if that's the reason why it's so expensive, so much more expensive than elsewhere?
That is something that needs to be discussed with them, really, because they are the ones that actually keep the same price and they won't negotiate. They have to pay their staff in actually processing the samples, their technicians. So that's why the prices don't seem to go any lower.
So do you think that action should be taken in that case on the price that the labs are charging? Because presumably you're getting accusations from people that it's you that are making all the money, but you don't feel that that's fair?
Yeah, we're actually, as I said, our margins are very tight, and yes, it's totally not depending on us. Yes, if there is a way for the government to maybe support these labs in a way, then maybe the prices will be lower, indeed. But at the moment, everybody's just keeping the same price.
OK, Paul, you're a travel consultant. Do you have a feeling that people have got together in some way, informally or uninformally, and are keeping the prices high here in the UK? Why is it so expensive?
I don't think that companies are working together on this and collaborating, but what I do know is there's been a lack of oversight and regulation by government. Ministers have been asleep at the wheel while an industry worth some £700 million has grown up over the last 6 months. And some providers are charging and making profits in excess of 30% during a pandemic, which I think is completely unethical, especially when we've seen vaccine providers like AstraZeneca say they're not going to make a profit on what they're producing. Of course, some companies need to make a profit to pay people, that's understandable, but to make so much is not at all the right thing to do when so many jobs in the travel industry are dependent on people having the confidence to book. And PCR testing is putting off people from booking.
Yeah, I know there are supposed to be cheaper ones available. I know you've looked into this, haven't you, as to sort of how the price schemes work, how accessible those £20 tests are, for example. How have you found actually finding the test and finding the more affordable ones, that process?
Well, most people are put off because they can't be bothered with the hassle of finding a test. And when you look around online and do your research, you'll see that many providers are charging a lot more than the government has made clear should be charged. And of course, they're doing it based on when you're traveling. So they're starting to introduce some sort of demand pricing into their pricing. So somebody's making a lot of money here at the expense of consumers who really have done the right thing in getting fully jabbed, and yet are still being told to take PCR tests that in most cases are not necessary. And as a result, the industry has grown up at this speed.
Paul, I've been trying to deal with this in quite a detailed way, because I'm trying to look into maybe doing some travel with the children. And it seems to me that the £20 test, or the lower price, I've not found £20 actually, but you can get down closer to that. It seems to me that they are either all booked or they don't fit the travel window. That seems to be where people are seeing an eye to profit. So you have to get tested within a certain window of hours, physically yourself, and then you have to get the result back before to feel confident that you can fly, to know you're not going to get to the airport and find it's a problem. So therefore, they seem to be making the most money in that window. Now, are they doing that because of a good reason, that speedy turnaround is expensive, or are they doing that because they've got an eye for profit?
Well, they're doing it because there's a lack of regulation by government.
Yeah,
and even
okay.
the regulator is acting too slowly here. But yes, you pay a lot more if you want a 4-hour turnaround, for example, compared with a 24-hour turnaround. And just listening to you, Kate, listen to the stress involved. This is supposed to be a trip to family or holiday. Yeah. It is just crazy that we've got to this situation where the layers of complexity of going abroad and leaving this country are so high that you're left in this ridiculous position and having to pay for it.
Edwina, let's come to you, because as a former health secretary, what do you think is going on here? I mean, we've heard accusations there. Ministers are asleep at the wheel. There's been a lack of regulation by government here. And it means that a lot of people are facing really expensive bills on top of their holiday cost at no fault of their own, because the government have said they have to have these tests.
Well, Kate said a moment ago that you have no choice. And the fact is, yes, you do have a choice. You do not have to go on a foreign holiday. Kate, bring the kids up to the Peak District. You'll have a lovely time. We'll make you very well.
Actually, as you've made it personal, it's not necessarily about that. But I've been trying to book a holiday in the UK, and I've not been able to find something that's suitable because I have particular needs. But and I can talk about that another time. But actually, your point doesn't help the travel industry. The whole point of this PCR tests and getting things going is to encourage people to travel safely, not being at risk. You know, this is what the government has said. Now, I think there's an argument that this has crept up on them in a pandemic.
Come on.
Sorry?
Let me respond to your question.
No, but you asked me a question, so I just wanted to answer it. I am very keen to be on holiday abroad, but this is for a specific reason where I might need to travel.
Yeah, well, you know, we have lots of people who have special needs who holiday in all parts of the United Kingdom. And so the idea that you have to pay for these tests in order to go on holiday...
I haven't even said it was a holiday, Edwina, so let's just, you know, let's leave it.
The expense, any minister would know immediately that the expense is partly because wages in this country are a hell of a lot higher than they are, for example, in Turkey. And if you want to have fast turnaround, you're talking about paying people overtime. We are very short of scientists and lab staff in this country. We're also short of things like drivers and delivery and so on. So that's why it's very, very expensive. You get what you pay for. If you want a quick turnaround test, it is going to have to cost. But governments do watch this very, very carefully. And often they come down like a ton of bricks. They just find various pharmaceutical companies £260 million for overcharging the NHS. So ministers are watching it, but they are also saying, look, you don't have to do this. Have a holiday in Britain, aid the travel industry, aid the hospitality industry in your own country.
So do you think they will have to take action to cap some of the more expensive prices, though? Because, you know, obviously it's a choice. People choose to go on holiday. They accept the fact at the moment that there has to be payment for a test as well. But for some of these prices, it does point to the fact that somewhere along the way, a lot of money is being made out of this.
No, it doesn't. I don't think you can assume that at all. It's a very expensive business. During holiday times, during peak times, to provide any kind of service, and particularly a technical service like one that's using laboratories, using delivery and couriers, a whole host of really, it makes a good thing that wages are up. I think that's wonderful. But it does mean that we are quite an expensive country in which to be doing this. I'm sure ministers are watching, and senior staff are watching, and they will be discussing, shall we say, with some of these companies whether there's any profiteering. I don't think there is.
OK, well, let's go back to Paul Charles on that then. I will come to Dr. Amir Khan in a moment as well. Don't worry, we'll come to you. But Paul, Edwina's right. You could not go away at all. You could not maybe reorganise your business if you're travelling for business. And you could holiday here in the UK. And if you want to go away, then maybe you should accept the price. But I think what people don't like is the idea that they're being ripped off and exploited in a situation that is not of their making. There's something unsavoury about it. Is Edwina right, and actually it's just down to the pressure of turning these tests around, or do you think something else is going on?
Well, first of all, there isn't the supply in the UK for everybody to take a holiday.
No,
great place to be on holiday, but it's either too expensive as well, or there isn't the supply. Secondly, I think from a PCR point of view, don't forget, if you're fully jabbed, you've got to question why you need to take a second test, a PCR test, on day 2 when you're back in the UK, especially if you come from what is deemed a green or safe country. So the whole question revolves around whether you need to take one in the first place. The final thing is undoubtedly that there is profiteering going on. Otherwise, you wouldn't be seeing so many companies enter the market. They're not doing it just as a laugh. They're doing it because they're making a lot of money out of it. Okay. And that's why the regulator is stepping in. Otherwise, why are they stepping in to take action?
Let's bring in Dr. Amir at this point, just to put that question about why the PCR test is needed on day 2. From your point of view, why is it so crucial that we still have all this testing when, as Paul Charles was saying, if the majority of people are double jabbed now?
Yeah, well, the PCR tests are essential because many of them are sent off to another laboratory to do genome testing to check for variants coming in from abroad. Not all of them. I would like more of them to be sent off, but particularly from red and amber countries, they do need to be sent off for looking for variants. I just want to go back to some of the points, really. I agree in a way that, yes, ideally we should holiday in this country because of the risk of variants coming in, but it is really expensive now to book a holiday in this country. It's not accessible for everyone. And for many working class families, a foreign holiday is an aspiration. And if the government has said you can go on holiday, which it has done to certain countries, it then does have a role in supporting people in that it regulates those tests. It's no good saying the government are watching these companies if it's not taking any action. And the people who have suffered the most, the people who probably need a holiday the most throughout this pandemic, are the working class people, the poorer people who we know have suffered more during this pandemic more than anything else. And they save and save and save to go on these kind of holidays. And then to be hit by PCR tests where profits are being made is really unethical. And not everybody is lucky enough to live in a beautiful part of the country like the Peak District. So we've got to have empathy for those people living in inner city areas where a foreign holiday, may be the only time they get a break from the hardness of their lives, really.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's a mental health issue, isn't it, for many, many people? And there's a reason why we do it. Not that we're not celebrating our wonderful holidays here too, but yeah, you're right. There's something about it that feels wrong.
OK, well, listen, we'll have to leave it there. But Dr. Amir, thank you. Edwina Currie, Gabriela Brewer and Paul Charles, thanks very much to all of you for joining us this morning. Keep your thoughts coming in, because I think there's a lot of people who've had to face paying high testing prices as the cost of going on holiday as well. Yeah, we do have a statement from the Department of Health and Social Care, and they said they have requested urgent advice from the CMA to help stamp out any exploitative behaviour in the private testing market. While they await the CMA's advice, the government will continue to ensure testing providers are held to account, and companies that fail to meet those high standards will be removed from the list of approved suppliers without hesitation. I think they're hoping to look into it in more detail in September, probably because it's taken time